Well, very good evening to you and welcome to the June episode of BAC-chat. My name is Andy Camsell. I'm going to do my customary disclaimer that whilst I work in the BEMS industry and I am known as a trainer for the Building Controls Industry Association, this channel is not supported by or the views of the Building Controls Industry Association. So any views that I express are my own. That said, we were hoping to have the views of the BCIA represented here with the president of the BCIA, Terry Sharp, but unfortunately he's had some technical difficulties and hasn't been able to get online as of yet. He may pop in a little bit later. I'm hoping he does, because he's the one with all the technical info on this Trailblazer scheme. However, I do have two representatives from Global Associates. I'm going to be joined in a moment by Paul Wetherfield, who is the CEO at Global Associates, and also by Josh Austin, who is an engineer at Global. And I first met Josh when he was going through his apprenticeship. I was running the BCIA courses, which is where I know him from, and now he's a qualified engineer. We're looking to get a retrospective on what it means to do an apprenticeship scheme and what that means to your career. Guys, I know you can hear me there. What I'd like to do first really is just sort of introduce yourself and say what your role is within Global. So if we start with Paul.
Good evening, everybody. Paul Wetherfield, Chief Executive of Global. Obviously, I'm fully responsible for the strategy and the growth of the business, but I also have a real passion for apprenticeships and taking people from school, college age and developing them into mature engineers.
Okay, fantastic. For those of you who are watching live, we do seem to be having some streaming issues. I'm not too sure whether it's my end or upstream, but hopefully it will clear up a little bit as we go along. So apologies for that. Moving over now to Josh Austin. Now, Josh, just finding the right button here. Josh, you are an engineer with Global. If you just like to sort of introduce yourself and say what your current role is within the organisation.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Josh Austin. I've been with Global now since 2015. Done all my whole complete apprenticeship through them, and now I hold the position of a key accounts service engineer. So, although I'm within the service department, but I sort of sit very in a decent position within that department, and yeah, very happy with it. And it's only been happened because of the fact I've been given such a good apprenticeship through Global, and it's allowed me to sit in this seat that I'm in now.
Okay, we are definitely having some technical difficulties because Paul just disappeared off and he's reappearing now. The things really we want to talk about, and we did want to talk about this new Trailblazer scheme, but want to talk about training in general. So just try and get all three of us up on screen here. There we go. You seem to be a little bit clearer there now, Paul. Really, you know, obviously, Josh, you've been through the current BCIA training program, which is BCIA 1 to 6, where we look at a lot of different concepts surrounding control. And I know you've done a more full apprenticeship. Can I just ask, you know, that classroom-based training, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not important and 10 is very important, where would you put the requirement for classroom-based training, you know, within your apprenticeship?
100%, without a doubt, at least 9.5 to 10, definitely. Especially with the BCIA courses as well, they all touch, like each individual one touches so well on the construction industry in general. Don't get me wrong, there's one that is like bases more on like pipe work and fittings, so that's not as applicable. But every other one of the other 5 is so in depth with what we are required to, and everything that is like portrayed across the course is stuff that is absolutely brilliant and vital to like continuing on in this industry.
Okay. I mean, my granddad had a stock saying. He always said, and this is in old money, but he always said, an ounce of practical is worth a ton of theory. But in reality, you know, you do need that theory in order to be able to sort of carry out that practical. Would you agree with that, Paul?
Absolutely. I mean, quality training has to involve a substantial program of on and off the job training. Whilst providing sort of like competence testing by an independent and a robust and well-checked endpoint assessment as well. So, it's important to have the site-based learning as well as the classroom learning.
Okay.
My view of any apprenticeship is that it needs to be employer-led. So that as the employer, we set the standards, we create the demand for each apprentice to meet their skill needs. Yes, obviously we part fund it, and also we have to dedicate the resource to the apprentices training, because without the buy-in from your team, it makes the training on site very difficult. We also have to acknowledge that the needs of any apprentice are equally important. So their role is to demonstrate determination, desire, and achieve a competence in a skilled occupation. So those skills learned in the classroom and on the job training become transferable to other roles in the industry, but most importantly secures their long-term earning potential, which is ultimately what we're all in it for anyway.
Individually, but also, in terms of the business, that brings a benefit to the business as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Totally. It's an agreed partnership. Any apprenticeship is in a partnership with the apprentice and the business. We have the requirement and the intention to ensure, apprentices' journey is taken right through to completion, and thereafter securing, as I said earlier, their long-term future with the business. The apprentice part of that role is to be motivated and work diligently to learn and to complete their apprenticeship term.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to quickly interject here. Terry has managed to get online, so I'm going to switch to the four of us, and hopefully... oh, no, we're not seeing Terry. There's Terry. Is Terry going on the screen?
Terry Technology.
There he is. Terry. There we go. Terry, can you hear us okay? I'm guessing that's a no then. Okay, well, just to introduce this gentleman who's appeared in the top of your screen, this is Terry Sharp. This is the current president of the Building Controls Industry Association. This is the man who has all of the details on this NVQ, which is going to be the Trailblazer. So hopefully he'll be able to get his sound sorted out soon, but we're going to carry on as though he's not there. Terry, you've got no trousers on.
He's got no trousers on. Brilliant.
This is the best one yet. And I knew if someone was going to let me down. Okay, so just moving this on, I just want to talk about this Trailblazer scheme. Now, it's Trailblazer is the scheme that is the sort of overarching name that's been given to what is essentially an apprenticeship, a modern apprenticeship. But there is a qualification at the end of it, and I probably should have looked this up and foreseen these problems. But there is a recognised qualification at the end of it, and that is hugely important. One of the drivers, or one of the people who was driving this, was John Belfield and his wife Wendy from In Tandem Systems, and they were passionate about the Trailblazer scheme. And John particularly, I remember him saying, this is really important because there is now a line in the sand where you can say, right, you've passed these tests, you have this qualification, you are now a controls engineer. And I personally think that's been lacking from our industry up to that point. Just turn to you again, Paul. Would you agree with that sentiment?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the difference between what the Trailblazer is going to offer and what the current existing training programs offer, and I can only speak about the training scheme that we've developed at Glover Associates, and I'm sure there's many partners, many system house members on this chat now that have developed their own. We've had to develop our own. The existing pathways sort of like cover 40 to 50% of the actual requirements of what we do within our industry. We add in ourselves the BCIA courses. We bolt on some panel training using a third party, systems house that's got great training facilities. But a Trailblazer will provide definitely a holistic approach to cover all that we do. From controls hardware to field devices to networking, communication protocols, supervisor software, and then associated with all of that, there's about 60 modules in total that also incorporate on top of the modules the full range, the new BCIA 0215 courses. So and there's a training provider out there now that's been assigned, and they've got a proven track record in the engineering sector. So it actually takes some of the responsibility away from the employer, and at the end of it provides what is going to be an industry recognised certification. So absolutely, it's absolutely amazing. John, Wendy, Roger Borer, who was at the BCIA, Gary Smith, who worked for me at Global Associates, numerous other controls companies, members of the BCIA that have given up their time and dedication to get this over the line in the last 4 years. There's been a phenomenal effort.
Yeah, and so from your point of view, Josh, do you think if you had that that information, just going right back to when you were at school or leaving college, whatever your last part of your education was, do you think you'd have been able to have made a more informed decision about becoming a controls engineer or BEMS engineer? Because certainly everyone I've met of my age, nobody left school saying I want to be a BEMS engineer. Everyone's just happened upon it. Do you think having that Trailblazer scheme would give you better information at the outset?
Oh, 100% as well. Even like now, I speak to friends, family, and I say about what I'm into. Like, they don't even know what BMS means. And to be honest, before I got involved in this, I didn't know what BMS was. And it's one of them. I don't think it's something that is across the general public. They do know what we actually do. You know what I mean? And it is obviously like a very fine market that we're in. And if we are lucky enough to ever get involved in it, obviously it's absolutely fantastic. And like the workloads, obviously everything's always different. And 100%. But one thing I will say, I think that obviously I've been very lucky to be given my opportunity from Global. And regardless of what else is offered, it's all about as well what is given from the engineering team at the company that you're at. I've been fantastic by the engineers I've always been brought up with. They've been absolutely phenomenal, very, very knowledgeable engineers. And that does add to it as well, 100%.
Yeah. On that note, actually, it's quite an important point, and you have already touched on this, Paul, is that getting support for the apprentices within the company is still going to be key. You're not completely offloading this training. And I know Global, I've worked with Global on a number of projects in various capacities, and you can certainly see that there is a culture within Global, and of course you get that within other companies as well. It's clearly important. Would you say that the apprentices coming through this scheme, if they don't have this support network around them, are going to struggle a lot more? Do you think it's hugely important, Paul?
I do think it's hugely important, and it's really important for the BEMS industry as a whole. Let's be brutally honest. We've got an ever increasing shortage of engineers. It's nationwide. It's UK wide, and we've got an increasing demand for our, for the system house members and BCI members in the marketplace. We've got an increasing demand on our controls expertise. Some of the facts not really directly related to BMS, but the wider engineering role. The skill shortage is exacerbated by an ageing workforce. 15% of engineers currently working, are set to retire by the time set to retire in 2026 or by 2026, which is going to leave an even bigger skills, knowledge, and experience gap. COVID left many businesses reducing their headcount, and in the process, many engineers moved out of the industry. And likewise, our industry is changing, and with the emergence of revolutionary technologies, we need to attract the young and talented wannabe engineers that have grown up in the Insta filter loving, Snapchat, generation. We need to.
You've
find the
no
next
idea what
generation.
you're talking about there, Paul, do you? You've just said some keywords that young people might say.
I've got two very late teen daughters, and I know all about the Instas and the filters. And not that I've used any filters myself, although some people listening might not believe that, but I certainly haven't. We really need to find the next generation of innovators and problem solvers that have got a keen interest in not just understanding what building controls are or a building's operation around the mechanical and electrical makeup, but in the future, the data, the artificial intelligence, cyber security, and the machine learning.
Sure.
We start to touch on it. As what I've seen of the Trailblazer, we start to touch on it in there, but that's going to evolve over time and expand, and the apprenticeship's going to get wider to cover those areas and now that are important in the BMS business for efficient buildings.
Sure. Something that I've thought, and I just sort of like you to sort of talk about this, Josh. When I started doing this, a controls engineer was a controls engineer. That's all you did. And now a controls engineer needs to understand the controls, the hydraulics, the way the air moves through the system, but also we need to have an understanding of computers, of data analytics, and particularly of networking and how that works. And I personally see this sort of diversifying out a little bit into separate roles. You won't just be a controls engineer, you'll be a controls engineer with a network bias or a mechanical bias, or whatever it is. Is that something that you would agree with, or do you think we can just continue constantly being all-rounders, learning more and more stuff? Which way would you see that going, Josh?
I think it depends on the company you're with. And like I say, when I've been with Global, ever since I first started with the apprenticeship, it wasn't a case of I was only involved in service, I was involved in projects, like a number of different roles. Do you know what I mean? It was never specific to one thing, and always, even with my weekly diary, I used to get involved in a lot of time with overtime. So that obviously helped me with the project work. But even in my normal weekly diary, I was never stuck to just service or just projects. It was always a variant of the two, and I think that's a massive thing of it, because a lot of people think that our service is like a low sort of area of it, but that's where you learn a lot of things. And honestly, Global have been brilliant with that. And with your progression, you can't step into anything too fast. You've got to do it all like I say, slowly. But as well, it all depends about the team you've got around you, 100%. And Global are brilliant with that, and they have not ever tried to force you into any direction. They just let you lead the way you want to go, and you've got the support there throughout the whole thing. And as well, from the bottom all the way to the top of the company, you have.
Yeah. So, do you have a particular facet of the industry that you enjoy most? Whether that's just meeting people on site or a particular facet of working on systems that you say, yeah, great, it's this job, I'm going to be doing that.
To be perfectly honest, like I say, I'm the key accounts now within Global, and I'm very happy with the position I hold. And I like building a relationship with clients. I love being in the service department and having an ongoing relationship with someone, not just a one-off. Yeah, we're doing a little project or a big project, and then once that's over, the relationship's gone, unless obviously work carries on from that. But I like the service side of it, and I love the fact of developing the relationships, like the on-site engineers as well. Obviously, everything's absolutely great, and we are part of a team, even though the on-site team are not part of Global. You know what I mean? We still feel like we're a team together. Yeah,
and I think as well, this. It seems to be getting off topic, but it's great to hear your enthusiasm. Like I say, when I first met you, you were doing the training courses, you were a trainee, and you've obviously developed a passion for this. So it shows that training really is key to the start of a successful career in this. The next thing I want to just sort of touch on is how this might affect our industry, and this is really where I was hoping Terry might be able to hear us. But Paul, this is probably going to be more directed towards you. Do you think that once we've got this NVQ, whatever level that is, I apologise for not being able to have that information.
It's actually a level 4, Andy. So
it's a level 4.
Some of us old boys will know as an HNC.
Yes, yeah. I knew it was equivalent to an HNC, but I didn't want to say that because I'm young, Paul. I'm not. So, but do you see a time when it will be a requirement of projects or servicing that your engineers have to have this particular qualification?
I think initially, if we think about the future of the Trailblazer itself and the BEMS level 4, the main benefit in the future will be it will take the judgment, the quality process, and the testing out of an interview. If somebody comes to you that's achieved a level 4 apprenticeship and they've got that certification, at the moment you interview people and they've got certificates in X manufacturer and Y manufacturer and Z manufacturer and some old stuff from their college days. But knowing that an engineer has been certified in level 4 as a control engineer will make decisions easier to employ. That much easier. I think it will definitely bring lots of benefits for people that have got those accreditations.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Josh, you've been through an apprenticeship program, and you're actually working in an industry where not a lot of people have. I mean, it's you obviously you started with Global, you're still with Global, so you probably don't get much of a feel for how that benefits. But you must have peers in the industry. Do you think they struggle without having that particular qualification?
See, to be honest, none of my close friends or anything have been involved in this industry. But obviously, since being with Global, we've worked with other close companies, other DMS companies. Got to know other engineers, got to work well with them. Done a lot of projects with them myself. And honestly, I do think it does go to the support that's in the background with it, because I know other people that, don't get me wrong, other companies got great support as well. I'm not saying that, but then other ones that haven't. I think it all depends on that, to be honest, because regardless, whatever if we're in this game, we are going to be able to go between company, if you want to, with your qualifications, because you are learning a lot from all the courses that you guys offer. But at the end of it, like I said, I do think it is a case of the company that you're with and what support they're giving you.
Okay.
I think that's really important, Andy, as well. And I'm sure some of the listeners, one thing none of us want to be, none of the system house companies in the UK want to be, is become a production line of producing engineers for the marketplace. So as an employer, we have a duty to make sure that we not only provide the right development, the right training, and the right career path. We've identified early on in one apprentice that we've got in the business at the moment, that actually going down the engineering route actually out on the field was not actually the way he wanted to go. So as well as we talk about engineering roles, there's other roles within our sector that need filling. And he's found himself in a design role. He's now doing graphics and he's writing software, and that's his preferred choice. So we managed that. We met his expectations and put him on a different career path. It's vitally important that as a business, and a lot of this comes down to the experienced members of the team and the management team and the senior management team, to make sure the apprentices feel their worth, because actually it's an investment for them as much as it's an investment for us. And we don't want to be the production line analogy I used earlier. It's not about that. We don't want to be just churning out good quality engineers for the marketplace. So we have a duty to follow the procedure, really get good engineering quality out the back of it, but then make sure that these guys want to stick with the business for the long term. I made a statement a couple of years ago that in 5 years' time, I want 50% of our engineering team to have heralded through our global training academy. As a result of COVID last year, we're a little bit behind that now. We didn't take any apprentices on last year. It was practically impossible to do so. But we will pick that up again this year, and two will go through the level 4 Trailblazer. We do other things around promoting apprenticeships within the business as well. We're very involved in STEM subjects across the education sector, which is vitally important to start the people at school age, or the students at school age, to start understanding more about the engineering piece and the capability that they've got for roles in the future within. Sorry, my dog's just come in. All sorts of Terry's pants and now my dog.
Yeah.
So it is a big investment. An apprenticeship for each individual apprentice that goes through the training and development is a big investment, but it's a very worthwhile investment if you can retain the resources of developing a quality controls engineer. Josh has moved up through the ranks in my business. He's, as he said earlier, he's now in charge of key account service clients. But Josh has got a future beyond that. Josh is going to be part of the management, and who knows? One day when I decide to hang up my boots, Josh could be part of the legacy that we leave with handing over the business to the next generation of talent.
There you go. You heard it here first, Josh. By the way.
Even with myself, like now talking to my younger brother, he's like, you know what I mean? Like I pass that on as well. Like I sing nothing but praises to this industry throughout my own family and the younger ones coming up. And like honestly, I can think of a better industry to get into, and I'm so lucky that I happen to have to get into it.
Do you think that having that, being nurtured through an apprenticeship program and having that support structure around you, do you think that has set you, Josh, in a better position for the next generation of engineers as they come up to kind of keep a bit more in mind about the help and support that they might need when you're the guy showing them how to do stuff?
Oh, definitely, 100%. And I know as well, a lot of apprentices on the company, like when asked like who they'd like to be with, and it's a case that they do choose to like to be with me, not because of the case I'm closer to their age, but like because I understand what I've been through to get to it. I know what they need to do as well, and I'm more understanding with it. Not saying that the other engineers aren't understanding at all, but do you know what I mean? And like I do feel like I've got a close bond with all of the apprentices at the minute, and I get on very well with them. They can talk to you about anything, not only work related as well, like on a personal basis. If they've got issues, they can feel freely talk to me, just on the relationship we have on a work basis.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are a little bit short of time now. I just wanted to sort of wrap up, and I have to say, because of Terry's technical issues, you've done a better job than James Palmer of being the Global Loving Show. He managed to get a few Global of the Best, but you guys have nailed it. I mean, all night. I want to work for Global now. Just to sort of sum up here. Paul, you've said about how important apprenticeships are and how much you support training. If you were to sort of say to the world, let's imagine there's more than just my mum watching this now. There's people out there, small companies, large BMS companies. What would your advice be with regard to training?
Make sure you have a clear and defined plan over the 3 years. Don't try and do things ad hoc. Make sure you don't try and overskill too early. It's a 3-year journey. Spread out the training, spread out the capability. You touched on the manufacturer and the generic training that's available out there. Don't go flooding manufacturer training too early in the apprenticeship, because they're not going to remember it. There's a right time and a right place. The BCIA courses, they can come in sort of like year 2, the early ones, the BCIA, BCO, BC1, BC2. But in towards the end of the year 3 is where you really want to start ramping up the manufacturer training. But we don't want to develop an X manufacturer commissioning engineer or a Y manufacturer commissioning engineer. We want to develop an all-round BMS controls engineer. And the advice is just make sure you have a structured training plan. Now, individual companies develop their apprenticeships the way they want to do it. And I know some really fantastic systems houses out there that have got fantastic training programs. But what the Trailblazer is going to bring is that to you. It's going to be structured, it's going to be organised, there's a path to follow, there's off-site and on-site training. You haven't got to worry about the college anymore. Day release in college is not required. Losing your apprentice for 6-week blocks is not required. It's going to be virtual classroom training, but a very small proportion of it. Most of it's going to be on-the-job training with regular assessments. And I think it's vitally important that this other people engage with the Trailblazer Level 4, because it is really a solid, structured 3-year plan. And you don't have to be new to the industry. A apprentices that are in amongst the system house network now. They can have an assessment to what level they're at now, and then they can jump on to the level 4 apprenticeship. So it might be they're a year in, they want to do the last 2 years. That can be done as well. But it's definitely around structure and making sure that you have it's really well planned out and thought about for the 3 years. Plus, on top of that, and Josh has mentioned it, and it's really important that you get the buy-in from your experienced engineers in your team as well, because without them, passing on their site-based knowledge to these apprentices, it'd be even more difficult to have the site-based learning done. So, they go unnoticed and unrecognised, really, the engineers that pass on their skills and their knowledge to the apprentices, but they need a big pat on the back for everything they do as well.
Okay. Just from your point of view, Josh, I mean, as silly to ask you what advice you give. You obviously have a very positive message about apprenticeships, but if you had to give some advice to apprentices, with regard to working through your apprenticeship, what do you think might be something? I know you're a bit on the spot here. Might be your key takeaway point, something that would help them progress through their apprenticeship.
Not necessarily the apprentices. Apprentices are supposed to be the most fully focused they can and try and strive to be the best if they're in a competition with them. Like, they need to just be the most focused they can be. Also, on the company side of things, to use apprentices like Global do, not just to do the task, to involve them all the time in what they're doing. Not just take an apprentice on for a spare pair of hands, to involve them in their progression, like Global do. And that is the main thing I would say for them. But yeah, for an apprentice in general, just to get stuck in as much as they possibly can and take everything up by the horns, really.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining me, guys. If you just hang back in the green room, I will sum up and I will be back with you. But really very grateful to you for looking up what the actual qualifications were, Paul, because I was ill prepared for that. And I'm sure what we'll do, we'll get Terry on another time. But thank you, guys. I will catch up with you in a moment. Thank you if you have joined in live in this discussion. There weren't many comments, but we seem to have been fraught with a few technical issues here. What I'm going to probably try and do is get another interview, a separate interview with Terry, and we'll pre-record that and put that out on the channel. BAC-chat, every month we try and discuss different topics within the field of BEMS. If you have any topics that you want to discuss at all, then please, I'm usually hanging around LinkedIn like a bad smell. Hit me up, drop me a message. It will be really good to hear from people about what you want to talk about within this industry. It's not a huge industry, we don't have a massive viewership on this channel, but it is important to have these discussions because we're all part of this same industry. So please, if there is anything that you want to talk about on this, whether you want to come on or whether you just want me to try and arrange some guests to talk about a topic, please do drop me a line. If you are able to subscribe to the channel, then it's just helpful because the more people we get online during the live streams, then the more comments we can get. Thank you. There is one comment at last. Thank you, Kyan. But it is, it's good to get that chat going. So thanks very much for joining us. We'll probably have the July BAC-chat a little bit earlier than normal. It's normally the last Wednesday of the month because I'm actually on holiday. It's my 30th wedding anniversary. 30 years. I know, I don't look old enough. But I will get that day out. And in the meantime, as everyone always says these days, stay safe, enjoy the rest of the football, and we'll catch you at the end of July.